All right, Coach Jen here, back with another mini surprise masterclass, if you want to call it that. It's not really masterclass, like an introduction for coaches and parents and athletes about recruiting and about how to get the most exposure. How do you get the most exposure for your college-bound athletes? So I'm going to do a little mini session here on the whiteboard with you guys today, and I can't wait to jump into it. This was inspired this morning based on a conversation that was happening here in the Fast Pitch Zone group, where somebody asked the question, and I put it in the description: how do you get the most exposure for your athlete? And it was, is it travel ball? Is it national travel? Is it camps and clinics? Is it phone calls? Is it high school ball? And there was a great conversation and a great thread going on about this conversation. I'm going to share with you my experience, both as an athlete going up and not just getting one college scholarship, but I actually ended up having to transfer because of personal safety issues. And so when I transferred, got a second scholarship, one to a Division I school, one to an NAIA school. And before I jump in, I'm just going to put this in here. The goal should not be Division I scholarship. And I just want to say this before I jump into this exposure conversation. The goal should be making sure that your athlete finds a good fit where the coach is going to pull the most out of her personally and help her in her life goal pursuit, right? So we need to change the conversation around that to really make sure that athletes are getting matched up with a good fit for them. Conversation for another day, because I have a whole rant just about that particular topic. But for today, we're going to talk about how to get the most exposure. Let me turn this around. How to get the most exposure for your athlete. But here's the thing: most exposure. This is actually the wrong question. And that's the first thing that I want to share right here. Most exposure, how to get the most exposure is the wrong question. What we want to do is how do we maximize exposure? This is what we want to talk about. Is that how you spell that? Maximize? I don't know. You guys get the idea. So maximize exposure, because let's be honest, like there's lots of people that get seen by a lot of coaches. Maybe they go to a ton of clinics. Maybe they go to a ton of camps. Maybe they're traveling all over the place. Maybe they have a great social media following, but just because they're being seen by a lot of eyeballs doesn't mean they're having a lot of conversations with the coaches that are going to open doors for them. And so our goal here is that you are seen by the right people and that you're actually able to take those conversations with coaches and turn it into real relationships and opportunities for your athlete. And I want to make sure we make that differentiation right up front, that this is not about how to get the most exposure. It's about how to maximize your exposure. And then when you learn how to maximize the exposure you get and you actually turn them into real conversations, real relationships that are starting to open doors and open up opportunities for your athletes, then we can talk about how to turn up the volume. But I know you know people that go to clinics and go to camps and go to tournaments, and then at the end of the day, there's nothing coming out of it. And so you want to make sure that you're getting maximization out of that experience, not just the most. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to break down some misconceptions and misbeliefs when we have this conversation and show you what we need to be focusing on, all right? So flip this around. So most people, when we enter into conversations about recruiting overall, a lot of times people want to talk about scholarships because that's kind of the outcome. That is the point. But today, the thing is, if this is the outcome, then the thing that we need to focus on is skills. Okay. And I know that sounds super basic, but stick with me for a second. Because usually when we think about skills, you're thinking, oh, hitting, pitching, running, pop time, fielding, those kinds of skills. But actually, there are 7 other less tangible, more intangible skills that college coaches are looking for, that if you know how to communicate those other 7 skills, and by the way, those ones we're talking about with hitting and pitching, those are fundamentals and those are important. That's one of the 7. But there's 6 other skills that athletes need to have in order to be more recruitable. And your athletes need to know what they are, and they need to know where they rank on those skills. And I'll tell you, they are not things. These other 6 skills are not skills that you track at showcases that you do in combines. They're things like the other day when I did that training on flow, like fast pitch flow. One of the skills your athlete needs to understand and know and master is, how do I get in the zone quickly? Well, why is that one of the 7 skills? Because you invest a ton of money to go to showcases, not just in the tournament, but in the travel and the hotel and the time away from work. And then what happens when that one shot that the coach is standing there watching, that they fold under the pressure, right? So coaches want to know that your athletes know how to turn it on and get the job done. And your athletes need to know how to do that, or at least at a minimum, know how to communicate to a coach that it is a skill that they're working on. So that's, now you know there's fundamentals and there's flow, but there's a bunch of others, there's 5 others as well. All right, so that's the first one. The second thing that people often get caught up on is, what are the recruiting rules? This is important, okay? It is important to know the rules, but it's not the most important thing. They want to talk about rules because they want to know, when can I communicate it with them? How can I communicate it with them? And it's important, but these are always changing, especially over the last year. What we want to shift your focus on to the things you can control is how to build relationships. And I have a whole training I'm going to do right now on that. So relationships, because here's the thing, if your athlete and you as a coach know how to build consistent relationships, the rules almost become irrelevant to you. And here's why. So you probably have heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And you know, we talk about that in business, we talk about that in life. Your athletes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, I believe it's a step further than that. It's not just who you know, it's who knows you and who is willing to open doors for you and who's willing to go to bat for you. So I'll share with you a brief story, and then I'm going to go through this little workflow. Okay. So I was very, very lucky and also worked really hard to get a college scholarship to, are you waiting to use the printer right now for me? It's going to be like 10 minutes. So if you need to you can just do it. It's fine. They'll handle it. I just noticed Manny was over there waiting to use the printer. You're good. Thank you though. So it's not what you know, it's who you know. So I was very, very lucky. I worked really hard to get that college scholarship. And then I had to transfer schools. And during that transfer process, that was a really scary time because I didn't know where I was going to end up. It was like a really weird situation. And luckily, I had built up what I call a power team, meaning I had real deep-rooted relationships with coaches that I had built a relationship with over time, who knew me, who believed in me, who supported me, that whenever I was at the Colorado fireworks and the coaches were watching me sitting in the stands, you know, Coach Diane Baker, winningest Division II coach of all time, comes over and says, who are you watching? Oh, you're watching Jen Starkey. She's the real deal. So they got an instant testimonial. Somebody who was respected, one of the most winningest Hall of Fame coaches of all time, huge in the space, was able to put her perspective and say something nice about me, which is what probably was one of the reasons why I got that first scholarship. But then when I had to transfer and I didn't know where I was going to go, I was able to reach out to my power team of coaches and say, hey, this is my situation. This is why I'm having to transfer. Do you know of anybody who's looking for a spot? Do you know of anybody who is looking for a catcher or who's looking for this role? And so then they were able to then go to their network and see who had a last minute spot, because so many people think at a certain point it's too late for you. It's like, if I haven't gotten it all figured out by this date, by this age, it's too late. That's not true. In fact, I had girls on my team whenever I was a junior that were at the fireworks with me my senior year. One of them got a Division I offer right there on the spot. And it was just because she looked athletic. Like, honestly, it's because she was fast and she looked athletic. And she got, where was it? It was like Southern Miss, I think. So there are always opportunities for you. So I want to let you know. Now, let's talk about relationships, because this is where people screw it up all the time. I don't know how many inboxes in my message right now saying, will you look at my daughter's recruiting video? I'm like, well, it's great that your daughter has a recruiting video, but that's not going to be the thing that makes her stand out, no matter how good it is. All right. And I've got parents saying, hey, I'm about to start sending emails. I'm like, well, what does that email look like? Right? Who are you sending it to? So I'm going to make it a comparison. We're going to draw a little analogy for you guys now. And so for those of you who understand business, it'll be a little analogy for you. And if you don't, I think this will also make you think about this concept of recruiting a little bit different. Okay. So let's talk about, if you were going to sell a product, right? Let's pretend you were going to sell, I don't know, a hitting cage, right? Like a giant, beautiful hitting cage or a pitching machine. Pick your favorite softball product. You think about, well, how do I get the most exposure? How do I maximize exposure? How do I make sales of this product, like a hitting machine or a pitching machine or a bucket of balls? Well, some people are like, well, I need to go to a trade show. So maybe I'll go to a softball trade show like the NFCA convention, and I'll have a booth there. And when I have a booth there, I'll try to sell some. But most people don't buy that pitching machine or that hitting machine or hitting net. They don't buy it at the trade show. A small percentage do. Just like when you go to a showcase tournament, you are the product as an athlete. It sounds bad, but that's what you are. Your mission is to bring value to the team that you're wanting to go to, because that coach is going to give you money or give you an opportunity to go play for their school. And as a team member, your job is to bring value to that team, just like if they were going to go to a trade show and get a new pitching machine, right? So you have to be very clear. When you go to a tournament, a big showcase, it's essentially just like a business owner who wants to sell, the latest and greatest softball glove at a trade show. Really what you're there is you're going to get exposure. You're going to go get exposure. What happens at this point is you are now on a list. Basically, coaches, when they go to showcases, they get a big, thick binder, and it has all the different teams and all the rosters. And so now you're on a list. And you, as an athlete, as a business owner, as the product, you also should get a list of the college coaches who are attending that tournament, hopefully ahead of time. Okay, so hopefully you know who's coming ahead of time. Now, let's go back to this version of the product, okay? So you go to a trade show, you collect business cards. Now, what do? You have a list of people to contact. And just because you have the business card doesn't mean you got conversations happening. People aren't necessarily saying, oh yeah, I want to buy that thing. I want to buy that pitching machine. Well, you got to send them some emails. Maybe they go to your website and they look at your social media and they're looking at reviews and they're looking at case studies and they want to know, well, is this pitching machine, is it really going to be a good investment? This athlete who attended this tournament, she's going to send me an email and say, hey, thanks so much for coming to watch me play. But now they're going to go look at your social media and say, who is this athlete? Is she really going to be a good investment? Is she really going to bring value to my team? And so they're going to look, they're going to say, what are other people saying about her? What does her work ethic look like? Just like over here, they're saying, okay, what do the reviews look like? How does this actually work? And then just because somebody's watching you on social doesn't mean they're going to remember you, because they're looking at a million other things too. Just because the guy who's trying to sell the pitching machine is looking at pitching machines on social doesn't mean he's going to actually do it. So now, if you're the business owner, if you are the product, if you're the athlete, now it's your responsibility to follow up with that coach consistently, consistency over time. Now, this is where most people make a mistake. Again, athletes are sending emails, are like, here's where I'm playing. Here's what makes me different. Or they don't even say that. They say, here's where I'm playing. Hope to see you. Hey, coach, I'm interested in you coming to your school. And all the emails look the same. And there's some really great recruiting companies out there. I've got so many friends that run amazing businesses, helping athletes find a good fit for them. Incredible. And what I have found with a lot of them is, because they're working with so many athletes that I know personally are absolutely incredible human beings that would be huge assets, is the athlete is still unclear about what makes them unique and what makes them valuable, and how do they communicate that to a potential coach, because it is your responsibility as an athlete. If you want to go to that school, it's your responsibility to know what value will you bring to that team. That's why understanding these 7 skills over here is so important, because you could get hurt, right? There might be somebody in the position you want to play. There might be 3 people in the position that you want to play. So what value are you going to bring? And you have to consistently communicate that over and over and over and over again to that coach. And here's the other piece. I talk to athletes about this a lot. There is no way that you're going to be able to communicate and build a real relationship with every coach. There's not. But what is cool is when you know the kind of coach you want to play for, right? When you're like, okay, I want a coach that has this personality and values these things. The cool thing is, if you've ever heard that quote, like attracts like, well, coaches know other coaches. And the coach that you love, they may not be coaching at that school next year or 4 years from now, because things change. But if you have a real relationship with a coach, they probably have friend coaches that are kind of like them. And so if you have a strong network of, let's say, 10, 20, 30 coaches that you're following their career, you're following let's start with 10. Let's just start with 10, because that's a lot to keep track of. Let's start with 10 coaches that you just love who they are. Well, I bet those 10 coaches know 10 other coaches who are like them. So if you get really clear on, here's the kind of person I want to play for, and you build a relationship with them, and maybe if you're not a good fit for them, maybe you can still add value and say, hey, what are you looking for, coach? Maybe while I'm out, I can keep my eye out for athletes in my area that might not even know about you. And you can build relationships that way. What else was I going to say? Okay, so coming back to our little analogy, is this helpful to you guys? If you like this, drop a heart. Drop a heart in the comments below, because it's good to know feedback, okay? So then your job is to follow up consistently. Then now it's like time to take the relationship to the next level. Now that you know that this is the kind of coach that's interested, you're having conversation, communication, you like this style, you like this person's personality, then you go to a camp or a clinic you attend in person, because now when you go, they're going to know who you are. Like now they're going to be on their, even if you're not a good fit for their school, at least they're going to have a relationship with you. And I promise, if you have good personality, even if you're not a good fit for their school, they're going to want to spend time with you because you bring them joy, because no coach is all about business. Like they want to feel joy about connecting with you and seeing you succeed. And that's where the real relationships develop, to where they can give you guidance on, hey, maybe you're not for us, but you can go here. Okay, that's over here in an event. From an event, that's when you go to an appointment. If this is going well and it's a good fit, or if they can refer you to somebody, then you can go on an unofficial visit. That's where you pay your own trip to go explore more of the school. Usually a coach that's interested in you, they'll set up special appointments for different parts of the, different programs that you're interested in. Or they'll have somebody that helps facilitate your visits around the school. A coach that's not as interested, you might not have that same experience. I booked my own, I think I was a sophomore in high school, and I booked my own unofficial visit tour. And I went to schools in New York. I went to 3 schools in Boston. I went to Hofstra, Boston College, Boston University, Emerson College, Syracuse University, Long Island University, and a few others. And when I went, I booked this all myself, called all the coaches, planned the whole tour, said, Dad, here's where we're going, here's how much I'm going to spend on flights, booked the whole thing, booked the Airbnb, or it wasn't Airbnbs at the time, it was regular bed and breakfasts at the time, but booked the whole thing. And it was so interesting by going on that tour, visit to visit to visit, to feel which coaches had the personalities that I was interested in, versus the ones that acted like they had no idea I was showing up, even though I had been following up this whole time. So unofficial visits are a really great way to figure that out. Then after you visit with in person, that's when this is going to continue to happen. This is a cycle, depending on where you're at in your experience. At some point, if they're interested, that's when you go to negotiation and an offer. Or you go to an official visit and an offer is made. It is the same if you are selling a pitching machine as if you are selling yourself, the value of that team. All right. So I wanted you guys to understand that. We've got one more point that I'm going to focus on here. Now, if you like this and this is helpful to you, I did a whole hour-long training on this topic specifically for athletes. It's totally free. I made a nice little website, recruitconfidence.com. It's 3 20-minute videos. The first 20-minute video, I go over the 7 skills that you need. The second 20-minute video, we talk about ways to build relationships. And then I honestly forget what's in the third. Oh, the third one is all Q&A. So it's Q&A with athletes asking questions about this topic. So it was a live training that I did. So you can go there. It's totally free, recruitconfidence.com. The other day, for those of you who didn't already, there's also the free training at Fast Pitch Flow, which, by the way, I got a really nice message from a dad who said he watched the Fast Pitch Flow training. He said he took one thing out of that training, just one thing. He made it his own, and he saw his daughter skyrocket how much contact she was making over the last weekend. So she said he was going to pass it along to her coach. She was really pleased with just taking one thing out of that training and using it. It helped his daughter last weekend, which is really, really cool. So definitely, if you guys want that, again, recruitconfidence.com. It's free, and there's an hour-long training designed for athletes. It's not the masterclass, but it's a really strong introduction that'll help your athletes get clear on maybe the types of things they haven't even thought about when it comes to recruiting. And I had girls on there as young as 11, maybe 10, that were watching that one. It even talks about how to be more confident at tryouts and stuff like that. So the last thing over here is that oftentimes people want to talk about showcases. And my big thing is showcases are great, but at the end of the day, we have to talk about performance, because the challenge with showcases is that then you get a bunch of girls on a team that are all focused on this, which means because they're so worried about being seen, and they're so worried about, well, is the coach going to see me at the right position? And is the coach, whatever it is, then they forget to show up and play as a team and to be in flow with their team to actually perform. And so that's why if you focus on performance, and then you happen to be at a showcase, it works really well. But the way that a lot of showcases are structured, it does not support this as the way it should. So that's why a lot of times when I come into the Fast Pitch Zone, I'm talking about this, because when you master not just physical performance, but the emotional performance of the whole show or the whole event, the whole experience, that's when this happens naturally. And too often, people get it backwards. And so again, Fast Pitch Flow, if you want that training, fastpitchflow.com, that kind of introduces some of the starting points on performance. But hope this was helpful to you guys. If you liked this, tag a parent, tag a coach in this video. Big shout out to Dave McCracken for hosting this great group. I got a chance to message him the other day, and he's got some big things potentially in the works for you guys, so where we can do something special for you guys. We're part of the Fast Pitch Zone, so make sure you keep adding your community here. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have additional questions about this specifically, if you want to go a little more detail, so what I'm doing now is, as I'm getting people asking me questions in my inbox, I'm taking screenshots of them, and then I'm saving them to do more Facebook Lives based on those questions that are coming in. So if you send me a question, I'll probably give you a quick voice memo, and then saving them for future lives. So again, my name is Jen Starkey, and I'm a person. I work with athletes on mental performance and leadership. Getting really excited about our Toughest Team Challenge that's coming up in about 8 weeks, which is all about how do you make your team more recruitable and how do you get sponsors and sponsors for your team and scholarships for your athletes. So we have that coming up in about 8 weeks. I'm super excited. If you haven't heard about the Toughest Team Challenge, it's awesome. And we've got 100 spots. Well, there's actually not 100 spots left, but there was 100 spots to start. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, it's about how do you make your athletes more recruitable, how do we get your team's sponsors, and how do we make them mentally tough, so that way when they do go to showcases, they can compete. All right, guys, having a phenomenal day. Hope you enjoyed this Lunch and Learn, and I will talk to you soon. Coach Jen, out. Play up.